Hi, everyone. I'm Lily Gonzalez, Executive Director of the San Antonio Book Festival, and I'm honored to welcome you to this event with Jenny Lawson and Sarah Hepola. In her newest, most personal book yet, Broken in the Best Possible Way, Jenny Lawson shares all about her experiential treatment for her depression with brutal honesty and brutal humor in that Jenny way. Jenny lives in Texas with her husband and daughter and was constantly buying too many books. It's not a real thing, she insists. I'm with you, Jenny. So she decided to skip the middleman and she started her own bookshop, Nowhere Bookshop, which happens to be the festival's bookseller. She's previously written Let's Pretend This Never Happened and Furiously Happy, both of which were #1 New York Times bestsellers. Moderator Sarah Hepola is the author of the New York Times bestselling memoir Blackout. Her writing has appeared in various publications, including Texas Monthly, where she's a writer at large. She lives in Dallas and is currently working on her second memoir, Unattached. We hope that you'll buy Jenny's books and Sarah's books from Nowhere Bookshop, the book festival's bookseller. Independent bookstores are having a hard time during the pandemic, so we hope that you'll support them and the festival by purchasing these awesome books. Just click on the Buy the Books button on our site. All right, let's hear from Jenny and Sarah.
Hi, Jenny.
Hello, I'm so glad to meet you in not really person, but a cyber person, finally.
I'm so glad to meet you in cyber person. It's
It makes
so
it sound
awkward.
like a robot. I love it. It's Westworld.
But are we? So I thought because this is virtual and so disjointed, but we're all together here, I thought maybe we'd start by just you're telling us where you are and giving us this, you're in front of this wonderful bookcase. Can you tell us a little bit about your surroundings?
I am in my office, which is technically a dining room, but we don't eat or cook very much. And so instead I was like, well, let's make this my office. So I'm here in San Antonio, where I've been hiding for the last year. We do a very, very strict quarantine because I'm autoimmune compromised. And so, yeah, this is pretty much my everyday where I live. How is your quarantine going?
I feel like as a writer, you've been training for this. I just feel, I don't mean just you, which is probably true, but I mean, like, as a genre, the writers of the world have been social distancing for some time. It's kind of like, yeah, we did that kind of as a career. So it's been a little bit easier than most for me because I live alone and I work from home. So it's like, oh, you want me to do that by government mandate? Got it.
Exactly. Exactly. I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I was reclusive before it was cool. Okay. Yeah.
You really are. I mean, you're kind of, so as I was reading your book, I was wondering, an introvert with anxiety. So like a pandemic, it's like on one hand, that's great. You get to stay home. You have to stay home. And on the other hand, like your anxiety's got to be going through the roof in terms of like what's possible. So like, how has that been for you?
It feels like this is a marathon I've been training for my whole life. It's in some ways it has been very comfortable. In some ways it has been extraordinarily uncomfortable because I have, fears around like people in real life. And so now it's almost like, normally I could be like, okay, that's the crazy, like, you're okay, it's fine. And now when I take my dog out for a walk and I like see somebody else on the street and I panic a little, I'm like, oh no, I should panic. This is actually, we are in a pandemic. This is,
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's, but honestly, there have been so many really good things that have come from it. I have so many, opportunities to do things that normally I would say no to, like even just great opportunities that would be offered to me. And I would be like, I just can't because my anxiety is too high and I never know if I'm going to be in a depression. And so I'm able to do things like this or, speak to different places. And so there's a little part of me that's like, I hope that we can keep some parts of the pandemic that have made it more, I don't know, just a little easier for people who have a hard time with leaving their house or getting out, or it sort of feels like some of the rules were broken, and I don't know, that's nice.
Would you say they were broken in the best possible way?
I did not plan that.
Oh, okay, I know, but I just had to do it. Okay, so and I agree with you. I think we should keep, like everything, keep the good parts, the parts that work, get rid of the rest. This is a chance for us to level up as a society.
Yes.
But I actually did want to talk to you about the cover, which I love. And I don't know what, it took me a long time. I thought that was a dog for the longest time, because I don't know why, but it's a beast. It's clearly a beast.
It is.
Can you tell us the story of this cover?
So there is this artist who I love. His name is Omar Ryan, and he did this great series of these women, these like Victorian or Rubenesque women, and they all were just like, they just looked so, they're beautifully put together. And then, but additionally, they would have some sort of monster that they would have, that they were holding. And for me, it was, as I looked at it, it was the greatest analogy for dealing with mental illness, that, you might feel like, okay, I've got everything together. But then you're holding back this monster. But what I wanted to have come across is that the monster, even though it is like a horrific beastie, but it's also like it's gotten into the garden, it's chewed out all of the flowers, but in a way, it's almost become sort of a vase. And so I wanted to so I asked him, can you do something and sort of capture that idea that we all are carrying around our own challenges and our own monsters, but that sometimes we can learn to live with them and even cherish them in a way. And because all of this happened during COVID, and of course I couldn't, pose for him, I actually did I did a bunch of pictures of me holding my ginormous ginger cat, Hunter S. Tomcat. And so actually in all of the real pictures, it's me holding my cat by his belly, and then he just sort of superimposed his monster. So
that's darling. And can you talk about the title?
Yes. The title was sort of an accident. It was only after because the original title was going to be Jenny Lawson, Full Grown Mammal. Because I talk about the fact that I'm not even good at just being a mammal. Like, I can't even do that. And one of my friends was like, you are, like, I'm so proud of you. You are a full grown mammal. And I was like, yeah, not really. I'm not very good at it, but okay, sure. As I was going through, I realized that so many of the chapters had to do with broken things and broken people, and the idea that I myself am broken in a lot of ways, with rheumatoid arthritis and depression and anxiety and personality disorder, and just all of that. But that the broken parts of me are the parts that are the most unique to me, and that if we can find a way to hold those to ourselves and I don't know, celebrate them, then they can become really wonderful things, instead of things that hold us back, even though they are terrible monsters.
Mm-hmm. So did you want to do a short reading for us?
I can. I have a tiny passage that actually, as I was going through, I was like, oh, I could read this one. Nope, a lot of cursing there. Oh, I could read this one. Nope, there's just so many That's just all about testicles. And then I was like, okay, wait, no, I found like a small little passage that kind of hits all the sweet spots of the book and the main theme of that's through the book. It's weird that we often try to present our fake, shiny, happy selves to others and make sure we're not wearing too obvious pajamas at the grocery store, but really, who wants to see that level of fraud? No one. What we really want to know is that we are not alone in our terribleness. We want to appreciate the failure that makes us perfectly us and wonderfully relatable to every other person out there who's also pretending that they have their stuff together and didn't just eat that onion ring that fell on the floor. Human foibles are what make us us, and the art of mortification is what brings us all together. And I just realized that even in that small passage, I still had to censor myself. There's a lot of cursing. Yeah.
Yay. That gets to what I think is one of the spirit of your work, to me, feels like kind of opposite social media.
Yes.
And what I mean is that, I don't think I need to explain this, but that there is just the Instagram perfectionism and the lighting and all the stuff that we do that sort of makes us look as though we're not screwing up, but we're screwing up all the time. Was that intentional? Did that just happen? This thing that you hit that's really like our secret weirdness?
I think it's a little bit of both. I have a really hard time following people where their life is so beautiful and pretty, and like even their messes are lovely curated and their hip bones stick out in just the right way, and like I don't know, all the stuff that they do. And every single time I'm just waiting for them to let that guard down and for you to see what's really going on, because not only is that more interesting, but also it's what we're all dealing with. You can present yourself with your highlight reel of, everything's wonderful and it's great and it's fantastic and nothing is a mess. But the thing is you're going to have a cat behind you on the Zoom call who throws up in the middle of it, and you can either go like, oh, that's not happening, and just turn off and mute and whatever. Or you could be like, look, did you just see my cat horking in the back? Like, what is going on with this? And everyone on the call is like, oh my God, that happened to me the other day. Like, they relate to it and they understand it. And then there's something so wonderful about taking those moments and saying, oh, guess what? The like really screwed up moments, those are the most wonderful moments. There's an entire chapter in my book that is all about the most mortifying moments of your life. And it started with, I sent this tweet out that just basically said, I was at the airport and the lady that was checking me out at the I was buying some gum and she was like, enjoy your flight. And I said, thanks, you too. And then I was like, I can never come back to this airport. And all these people started responding and they were like, you think that's bad? Let me tell you about this. And they would tell these mortifying, wonderful, hilarious stories. And it went on for days and days, people responding, thousands and thousands. And I literally had tears because they were so funny and so wonderfully relatable. And I loved it so much that I actually reached out to, I think 100, maybe 200 people of my favorite ones, just to ask, would you mind if I use them in my book about this, the idea of embracing our mortification, that's what makes you human. And every single one of them was like, absolutely, you can use it. No one said no. And they were like, that was the most popular tweet I ever sent out. I found all of these friends because they were like, oh my God, something like that happened to me. So suddenly they found all these friends. And now this thing that before that they would sit up at 3:00 in the morning and go, oh my God, that mortifying thing that happened to me in junior high. Oh, I'm cringing inside. Now they're like, I can't wait to tell that story. That's such a funny story. Like they found a way to embrace it and love it. And I don't know, I just think that's so wonderful.
So I'm glad you brought up this chapter. It's my favorite chapter in the book. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And there's so much about, I mean, just so your interaction that you did with the stewardess or the flight attendant, they see I just screwed up. That I've done that so many times, and it's just, and you're there and you're in line and it's this private moment of like sinking, like, ugh, what can you do? And all the things going on in that moment, but it's this isolated thing, you know, that happens inside of you. And then by you're putting this on social media, you made this a communal experience and everyone together, and they turned their private embarrassment into this public kind of celebration. And I think there's so many wonderful things about this chapter, but I have to read two of them. That is what I marked because I love them so much. I mean, you could just go through here and just find all these funny things. But there's one, this is from somebody named Miss Liberty. And she says, I talk fast and once told a customer at a bookstore that a new novel had made the man liquor bong list. Hashtag man booker long list. I couldn't get a man liquor bong
list. It's so perfect.
It's so perfect.
That to exist.
Like, how is there not a man liquor bong list is my question.
I'm going to say that we have been nominated for it. It's a brand new thing.
I won it 4 years ago.
Oh my God, I love it. Yes. I'm going to have ribbons made up for us.
So great. And then the other one, I just couldn't get over this one. This is from Cardinal Biggles. A friend thanks me for coming to their husband's funeral. My reply, anytime. It's like,
so good.
It's like the worst. So bad on so many levels. It's just so bad.
It's so, you feel that cringe and then the laughter at the same time. And it's just, you know, when I did the audiobook for this, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to read these and not laugh through them.
Oh, seriously.
They're so funny. So I did the audiobook in my closet because I couldn't travel or do anything. And so it was just like me in a closet with the cats because otherwise the cat was like, let me in. So I was like, fine. Yeah. So it was just me and I would read and I would read like 3 and then I would start laughing. And then I'd read 3 and I'd start laughing. And the producer is, you know, they're listening. And they would just be like, okay, let's try that again. Okay, let's try that again. And I don't know. They had said they were like, we may end up having a whole blooper reel. And I was like, you could do hours of me just laughing at. And they were like, oh no, we know.
I love that. I love that. That's so beautiful. And it made me wonder, why don't we do that more?
We should because it's so freeing. It's so wonderful. It entertains everybody else. It gives everybody else permission to share their embarrassing thing. I mean, I think it's so wonderful to embrace our mortification and our flaws and our, you know, I did maybe like a half a year ago. I did a Zoom thing with Ali Brosh of Hyperbole Hath and Solutions Another, and I love her. Oh my God, I love her so much. And I don't think, you know, I mean, we're friends, but I don't think we ever would have talked, you know, otherwise, because we both like are very afraid of the phone and we're very afraid of leaving the house. And she was like, okay, let's do this. We're going to do this. And so we did it. And I apologized to her, and I have this nervous tick that when I'm really tired or when I'm really scared that shows up, and she was like, well, I don't see it. And I was like, I blink really hard, and not everybody recognizes it, but a lot of people will be like, what's wrong with your eyes? What are you, you know, do you have allergies or whatever? And she was like, okay, now I can't stop looking at you blinking too hard. And I love it so much. And it's the best thing ever. And after that, every single time when I get on my first thought every time is, oh, people are going to see this tick that I have. And then I think, Ali Brush thinks it's very cute. So sometimes if you just open up and just say, here's this thing that I'm really embarrassed about, then people are like, oh, me too. Guess what? I'm covered in cat fur. You can't see it because we're on the screen and it's great. But I absolutely am. And I bet everybody in like the virtual audience is looking down and they're probably covered in cats. And they're like, oh, thank God. We all are. But we just have to give ourselves permission to share that, because then it becomes a safe space for everyone.
It's such an interesting story. The Ali story reminds me that we want so bad to be kind of admired and perfect and look a certain way, but it's the mistakes and the broken parts of us that allow people to bond and see themselves. And I've always liked gaps in teeth. I don't have any. My teeth are no braces. My teeth are all messed up. I love gaps in the teeth, and everybody wants to correct them, and it's like, that's the best part.
My husband has a gap in his teeth, and he's always like, oh, I should have worn my retainer. And I'm like, no, it looks so great. And they're even, now there's where like your phone like auto corrects, like it has, and it'll like try to fit. And I'm like, don't fix that. I like that.
So I wanted to ask you about your bookstore, Nowhere. Can you tell us about founding that?
So Nowhere Bookshop is, I need to check with the Guinness Book of World Records, because I suspect it is the longest running bookstore that has never actually had a customer come into the store. It would have been open for, a year by now, here in San Antonio. But we instead have just relied on, curbside service. And I have this book club called the Fantastic Strange Links Book Club. And it actually really, saved us. We just have it set up where, once a month, people get a book from, great authors that maybe they wouldn't have heard of before. And it's been super helpful, not just to us, but also to the author and to the publisher. So yeah, I'm very excited that, fingers crossed, maybe we'll be able to open the doors. Like one day, I actually got my first vaccine. So, I'm like, I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And like, now we just need to make sure everybody else is like taken care of. And yeah, it's wonderful and great, and scary. It is the only place that I get to go. So once a week on Sunday, they close. And so on Sunday I go up and I'm like, I have the whole bookstore to myself. This is paradise. And when my original idea, because I've always loved, I think bookstores and churches are a sanctuary, and maybe not churches so much for me because I'm not religious, but there's this idea where it is such a comfortable place, like a safe place that you can be. And I loved the idea that every place that you go in a bookstore is this sort of no place, because as you're reading the books, you're visiting all of these different lands and different people and different, like, it's almost like you're opening up a map to places that don't exist, or minds that have these amazing ideas. And so I thought, well, let's name it Nowhere, because it's all of these great nowhere places. And then it's, literally going nowhere because it's a year later, and we have yet to have a grand opening. Although, it kind of worked out, because I kept thinking I would probably not go to a grand opening because it sounds really scary to me. And there'd be way too many people. And so I told Elizabeth Jordan is the the general manager, and I was like, what if instead of having a grand opening when we do actually open, what if we have a series of bland openings, and they're just kind of boring, and they're great enough that people go like, oh, look, it's the bland opening, and we just have like once a month. And then if somebody's like, yeah, I don't really want to go, I'm kind of afraid, we can be like, that's fine, come next month. It's not a big deal. It's a bland opening. No FOMO.
That's genius. I love it. Our time has flown by, but I want to ask you about, one of the most compelling essays in the book is about an experimental treatment that you got for your depression. And I feel like I would be doing a disservice to your audience if I didn't ask you about that. If you could tell us briefly about it, and also how it's going since then, since you've written the book.
Yeah, so it's called Repetitive Transcranial Magnetic Stimulation. And it's basically, they just like put this like magnet hat on your head, and it's not comfortable. It feels like like an electric woodpecker sort of tapping at your brain. And it's for treatment-resistant depression, which is what I have. And about a third of the people who try it, nothing happens. A third of the people, they have some help, and a third of the people get into full remission, which is a big deal for people who are treatment resistant, because you have to go through a lot to get to that point. For me, I did it, it's like 30 hours maybe, or 40 hours. It's stretched out over a period of a month or two. And it really helped me to get out of a very deep depression, and it helped me with my anxiety, but I didn't go into full remission. A year later, I ended up having to do it again, which is not that unusual. And honestly, if I had the ability to leave my house, I probably would be doing it again right now, because it does help. For me, I would say it gives maybe like a 75% difference, which can be a really big difference.
Yeah.
But what's great, there are so many different types of treatments that are out there that weren't there before. And there's, ketamine, and there's, all of this different stuff that I look at, my great grandmother who, died in an asylum, and I look at the treatment that she got versus the treatment that I get. And it's still not perfect, and it's painful and difficult and hard, and you have to fight for it. And it's impossible to fight for it when you have depression that is telling you that you don't need it. Your depression is lying to you. So it's hard, but it's also, it gives me a lot of hope that things are changing, and that if I continue to stick around and battle it out, that things are going to get better.
Good. I'm glad you wrote about it. So we do not have an audience here to do a Q&A, but if we did, what do you think someone would ask you? I'm going to ask you to come up with your own Q&A question. Make it overlong and off the topic, please.
I think, honestly, what I think people would ask, I think they would say, what the hell is behind you? Because I just realized that I have a taxidermied alpaca behind me. That is Fleece Witherspoon, died of natural causes. All of my taxidermy, I always do ethical taxidermy, and I find these wonderful little pieces, and I'm like, look, we need to dress them up. Let's make them hats. And my entire office is filled with them, by the way. I've got like, mountain lion with the full mustache and the bowler hat, and it's absolutely ridiculous. Actually, even in Nowhere Bookshop, I have an antelope that I found at an antique store. It's like super old and fallen apart, and I was like, Antelope Boleyn, and so I have her dressed in full Anne Boleyn outfit. It's so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous.
Well, I think that's the perfect way to end this. I don't think we can follow up Fleece Witherspoon. It's just, I need to retire. You're done. Going out on top.
Going out on a high. Out on a high.
It's great. So Jenny, it's been wonderful talking to you. I loved it.
Oh my gosh, this was so much fun. This feels like the most social thing that I've done in a very, very, very long time. And yeah, this is great. Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you.